He was an American criminal in the mid-1930s. He and his gang robbed at least 24 banks. J. Edgar Hoover, director of the forerunner of today's FBI, declared him to be public enemy number one. However, many saw him as a Robin Hood figure, stealing from the banks who heartlessly foreclosed on mortgages and left families destitute during the Great Depression. Of course, I'm talking about the legendary John Dillinger, head of the Dillinger Gang, who was supposedly shot down by law enforcement officers on the streets of Chicago in 1934. At one point, his gang hid out at the small vacation resort of Little Bohemia in rural Wisconsin. As the police closed in on them, they escaped through the woods, and Dillinger allegedly buried a suitcase containing $200,000. The story of Dillinger's buried treasure remains a persistent American legend, and the money has never been found. Hi, I'm Tamworth Grice. Welcome to my channel, the Tamworth Grice Files. This is a place where you will find cases that are spooky, macabre, fascinating, supernatural, and just plain weird. And in each instance, I have a personal connection to the story, so be sure to stick around to the end to hear about that. John Herbert Dillinger was born in 1903 in Indiana. His father's impoverished father, his grandfather, Matthias Dillinger, had immigrated in 1854 from Alsace-Lorraine, a disputed territory between France and Germany. He was seeking new and better opportunities in America. Dillinger was intelligent and cunning, but he dropped out of high school. He was involved in petty crime as a teenager and was noted for his bewildering personality. After a brief stint in the Navy, an honorable discharge, and an unsuccessful marriage, Dillinger stole $50 from a grocery store. His misguided father convinced him to plead guilty, thinking this would invoke leniency from the judge. The opposite happened, and he was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison for stealing $50. In prison, he learned about crime from his fellow inmates, particularly about bank robbing. Paroled at age 29, he formed the Dillinger Gang, one of the best organized and most notorious bank robbing gangs in history. A month after his parole, Dillinger committed his first bank robbery in Ohio. In spite of arrests and a vacation in Tucson, where he was apprehended and then escaped from jail, during a year-long robbery spree, Dillinger's gang stole at least $500,000, equaling $7 million in today's money. The gang hid out at the tourist resort of Little Bohemia Lodge in Wisconsin. As police closed in on the gang, Dillinger fled into the surrounding woods and supposedly buried the suitcase containing $200,000. His plan was to lay low in Chicago until the police pursuit cooled, then return for the $200,000 in the suitcase, and then flee to South America. Dillinger did go to Chicago, where he had plastic surgery to change his appearance, and he used acid to destroy his fingerprints. After hiding out for 3 months, he was allegedly shot dead by police outside Chicago's Biograph Theater in July 1934. However, when asked to identify the body, his father said bluntly, "That's not my boy." The question is whether his father failed to recognize Dillinger due to the plastic surgery, or whether someone else was killed by the police, possibly a small-time criminal look-alike named Jimmy Lawrence, who had a similar face and build. The theory is that law enforcement czar J. Edgar Hoover, embarrassed by his operative's mistake in shooting the wrong man, covered up the air quickly, and encased the dead man's corpse in concrete to prevent further investigation. Family doubts about the corpse's true identity persisted for years. Supposedly, the dead body's eye color was brown, but Dillinger's was gray. The body had a heart condition Dillinger didn't have. The ears were shaped differently, and the teeth did not match. His family later sought to have the body exhumed for a DNA test, but this has never happened. If Dillinger was not killed, he might have returned to the Wisconsin woods, dug up the suitcase, and escaped to South America as per his previous plan. As I said, Dillinger's buried loot has never been found, even after nearly a quarter of a century, and it is considered one of the most famous hidden treasures of the United States. The story is popular in Wisconsin, where tourists and others have sought the loot, but no one has discovered the suitcase or the cash, and its location and even its existence remain a mystery. For more about John Dillinger, I'd suggest the excellent film starring Johnny Depp as Dillinger. It's called Public Enemies. Now for my connection to the story. I've always felt a kinship with John Dillinger, even though he was a criminal, because I was born on his birthday. In addition, some of my ancestors came to America from Alsace-Lorraine, like Dillinger's grandfather. I like to think they may have known each other and may even have been related. Dillinger grew up in Indiana, and I spent a lot of my childhood in Ohio, a state adjacent to Indiana, and one where he committed his first bank robberies. His mother died when he was 4, mine when I was 10. His teen years were marked by rebelliousness, as were mine, although, of course, I never engaged in crime like he did. My brother retired to rural Wisconsin, not far from Little Bohemia. When visiting Chicago after college, I stayed with friends who lived just blocks away from the famous Biograph Theater. When visiting Chicago, as I said, I stayed near the Biograph Theater, but now I live in Arizona, and I visited not only Dillinger's house, but I stayed at the Tucson Hotel where he once was captured before he escaped and rejoined his gang. So, what do you think? Was Dillinger really public enemy number 1, or was he a Robin Hood figure, stealing from the banks that foreclosed on mortgages during the Great Depression? Do you believe Dillinger buried $200,000 in a suitcase? If so, why has it never been found? Do you believe Dillinger was really killed by police outside the Biograph Theater, or did a look-alike die instead? Finally, do you think John Dillinger survived, returned to Wisconsin, dug up the buried loot, and lived out the rest of his life in South America? Leave your answers in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you found this story compelling, please subscribe because I really need subscribers, and like and comment. I hope you'll return to view the next video in the Tamworth Grice files. This is Tamworth Grice signing off. Until next time, stay wonderful, stay weird, and have beautiful dreams.